Welcome everyone to the Tech of Fame podcast. My name is Kylie Monsigny, and I've been so excited for this episode because today's guest is Aly Riley, who is an American historian based on the East Coast. She strongly focuses on the setting of the Roanoke all the way to the end of the Civil War, but the majority of her studies are based on the nation's founding and colonial times. She's a 2021 graduate at Monmouth University in West Long Branch, New Jersey, receiving a master's degree in history. In September 2023, she released a book called She Spies, Women of the American Revolution, Heroic Missions and Agent 355 Revealed. The book goes into detail about women before and after the American Revolution, their sacrifices they made in their secret espionage activity to help the Continental Army win the war. It talks about the ladies who fiercely fought for their country without the men suspecting anything. Also, the elusive secret spy known as Agent 355. It is also finally revealed years after questioning her identity. Thank you so much, Ali, for joining us on today's episode. I know it's been a whirl trying to figure things out, but I'm very excited to do this episode.
Thanks, Kylie. I know we've been scheduling like four different times to try to get this on, but I'm finally so excited to get to talk to you about this.
I'm the same here as well. But of course, you are a big history person, so am I.
Yeah,
I love history, especially the United States. Who doesn't get, crazy over American history? But how
right.
did you get interested in studying the history of Americans' colonial period and the founding of the nation, especially as a resident on the East Coast?
Well, my grandmother was really big in history, and my mother's mother. She loved literature, she loved history. And then when I was in fifth grade, we did a school field trip to Philadelphia.
Mm.
And I just loved going into like Independence Hall. We did the Betsy Ross house, and I kept saying, why do people find this so boring? Because I will admit, for the first like 10 years of my life, I hated it. I will admit that I did not like it. I'm like, why do
Mm.
people care about the past so much? And then as we did all that, and then I had a teacher the next year when I was in sixth grade, and he just made it come alive. I wish I remembered his name, but he just made history so interesting. The way he just talked about our historical figures, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's not as boring as I thought it was. And then growing up, I used to watch Jeopardy with my grandmother because my parents both worked. And she always said, you always get every history question right somehow, even though you claim you don't like it. She said, maybe you should go into it. And then starting at like 13, I got my first history book and it went off from there.
Like honestly, I feel like when you're first up to like your 10 years, I feel like you found basically everything boring. Honestly, wants to say why I
Yeah.
found history very boring. I did not care. I did not give one damn in the world. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I'd rather do something else and learn about history. And every time we went to places like DC, Philly, because I'm 2 hours in Philly, so when we go down to Philly or something, I'm just like, I just want to
Right.
go home. This is the last place I want to be. But as time grew on, of course, with the pandemic, we had a lot of time on our hands.
Right.
And then that's when obviously my history nerd myself came out because I was like, I watched a show that was like about like being a president of the United States, and I was like, this is amazing. Like I love this show, even though I never was really interested in politics or history before, and I
Right.
became obsessed with it ever since. Like if someone asks me questions about it, I'll be like, you don't need to ask me twice. Like let's just
Yeah.
give me a million questions, I'll probably get them all right, even though
Exactly.
I'm pretty cocky in my answers. So
Oh, yeah. I do
it
that
might be wrong.
sometimes. Yeah.
But of course, with the war and stuff, like how has historical focus on male participation in war impacted our understanding conflicts from history? Because of course, with every war that the U.S. participated in, there's a different understanding.
Right. Like, I saw that there were so many male efforts that they were participating in, but I just kept always wondering if there were women who did it because they're always overlooked or like a lot of people don't for some reason care about women's history. And I was like, the one reason I got into doing this was because my first semester of graduate school, I took American Revolution. And my
Mm.
professor was like, you can do your final paper on anything you want. I don't care. Just as long as it pertains to the revolution. You could do a general, a battle. I don't care. So my father's family's from Long Island. So I said, well, let's look up the Culper spy ring. And then when I saw that there was a woman who helped them, I'm like, I wonder if there are more. Like, no offense to the men, I know what they did. but there's got to be more women. And then when I found how many there were, I'm like, why is this never talked about? I've been studying this since I was 13. I'm almost 31. Why is this not talked about? Why is this not in any American Revolution book I've ever read or that I have on my bookshelf? So I said, if nobody's going to write a book about it, I'm going to do it.
You
So I
might as
said,
well.
yeah. So I said, I appreciate what the men did. Like, I know like Benjamin Talmadge, George Washington, all that. But I'm like, what did the women do? Aside from Anna Strong, there had to be more. And there were. I couldn't believe all the information I found. I said, you know what? I'm going to put it out there. Somebody's got to write the book. Let it be me.
You might as well be the person. Because of course, like there's a lot of men that did things during the Civil War, but there's barely any women that are talked about during the Civil War or any war in general. Like there's
Right.
barely women talked about or big women figures are talked about. It's mostly the men. It's mostly 100% of men that are talked about, but there's basically 1% of women that are in books that I
Right.
personally see. That I
You're
personally have
right.
read. Like, I'm just like, why are women not being spotlighted, but the men are? Like that's
Right.
something I've always questioned myself.
Yeah. I mean, like, I have a book that's like just on Betsy Ross, but I'm like, aside from that, I'm like, where are other like female books? Like, I know there's a couple spies of the Civil War that were female, like Belle Boyd. I'm like, why are there no books on her?
Like, why are there not more books? It can't just be one. There has to be a ton
Yeah.
of people know about her. Like, not everyone's gonna
Right.
read this book. Like, not everyone
Right.
ever. There has
And
to be a million.
right. And I did my thesis on this. So I said, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a book because it needs to be out there. My
Mhm.
thesis readers immediately approved this topic. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to edit it up a little bit, add a little bit more, and put it out there.
You might as
Because,
well. Yeah, I'm glad you came up with that
yeah,
idea because it needs to be out there, man. Like it does.
yeah,
Like every story needs to be out there. Like it's not all about the men. Women's stories should
it
be out
is.
there too.
Yeah, that's like my favorite show, like Mysteries of the Museum. I visit museums constantly, and I'm like, there's still stuff in there I never even knew existed.
Like there's a place that you like if you've been to a museum a million times, I'm sure there's tons in there they probably never saw.
Exactly. And that's why that show lasted for so many seasons because, like, and so many people got into history too because of that show. Or, like, with my book, I have people I know who bought it who are like, I don't like history that much, but like, how the heck did you figure out who she is? Like, one of
Exactly.
my best
Like
friends, Olivia.
no, because if someone asked me a question, I'd be like, the internet
Yeah.
or
Internet,
museums, like
JSTOR
people.
Museum, other books. Like my friend
There's many
Olivia,
ways they can figure it out, but it's barely talked about. So mostly we
it
just find it
is.
from the internet mostly.
Right. And like my friend Olivia, she's not big on history, but like when she bought my book and read it, and she was like, I can't believe how you figured this out. I was like, because Don Yeager and Brian Kilmeade wrote a book about George Washington's Secret Six, the spy ring. And then now they have an afterword that says, who was Agent 355? And they put in there who I say it is. And they're like, oh, well, unless new evidence comes to light. I'm like, you didn't look where I looked because I figured it out.
You just have to figure it out too. It
I
takes
figured it out.
patience. It literally takes patience and
It
dedication.
does. There's
That's
one
what it
portion
takes.
I found online, and I'm like, connect the dots.
I know it takes time. If you are not a patient person, then this is probably not for you. It
Right.
takes time.
Yeah.
But of course, your book, She Spies, Women of the American Revolution, sheds light on the untold stories of women during this pivotal period. But what made you, of course, choose this topic out of many other topics that are out there during this different wars?
You know, I've always loved learning about women's history and the American Revolution, even though I study all of American history. The American Revolution just always stuck with me. I mean, I visit the museum in Virginia a lot. I finally got to go to the one in Philly right before the pandemic hit. We went October of 19 and then it shut down.
Mm.
So the American Revolution was always, I always say to my mom, it's always my best war. It's just everything I love about it. I love studying like the colonies and all that. And I just wanted a different, unique thesis topic. I saw what all my classmates were doing. And when I looked up the Culper spy ring for my revolution paper for my class, I kept thinking, there's got to be more women than just Anna Strong. Are there? And then when I Googled women spies in the American Revolution, I looked at the list. I'm like, holy cow, where are they in the books?
There's
Like,
barely
where's,
any. If we're lucky, we get one.
yeah. So I said, I saw that Anna Strong was mentioned. They mentioned her at the International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. But I'm like, what about the others? Like, say, Lydia Dower, she worked in Philadelphia. She's not mentioned anywhere. Peggy Shippen is mentioned a lot everywhere, or like Anne Bates, she's not mentioned anymore. And I'm like, well, someone's got to write this. Why don't I do it? And I
Might
did.
as well, someone has to at some point. If you
Right,
don't start with it, then there might not be none in the near future.
right.
Like,
And now
it's
people are
just a
asking me to write
matter of
sequels.
someone starting and people following.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a
I'm,
matter of fact, like, why don't people want to write about women in the history books? It's the question
exactly.
that I'm always bugging. So I'm like, why does no one want to talk about women? Why does people always want to talk about men?
Right.
What's the problem with that? Like,
Yeah.
that's something I do not understand.
Yeah. I think pretty much every book on my shelf right now is except for the Betsy Ross one in my book are all men. Like Ben Franklin, I have the Battle at Yorktown, I have, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it's all men in there.
I'm like, I don't know why, but everything I read is mostly all women. I don't know why, but there's some books that are wrote by men that I read, but I'm like, it's more 90% it's like all women. I'm just like,
Yeah.
might as well support now. Like, why shouldn't I?
Right.
But how has like your background in education and history shaped your research and writing style in your book?
I was always good at history. Like I said, I started studying it seriously when I was 13. I've always had good grades in it. And then I did well with it in community college. But when I went to undergrad, even though I had to take like 3 courses to meet my elective credits, I kind of took a back seat for a while. And I tried sports. I tried sports reporting because I've played baseball my whole life. I watch
Mm.
hockey a lot. I do watch baseball, but after I realized I wasn't really getting anywhere with it and I was struggling to get internships, I said, you know what? I wonder, should I go back to history? Would I do anything with it? Will I accomplish anything with it? And then where I went to school, they had an ad on TV. And my mom was like, you have always had good grades in it. She said, look at your transcript. Try applying to Monmouth and see what happens. Sure enough, a month later, I got in, and my professors were the best. I mean, I have nothing bad to say about any of them. They encouraged me so much. You could always talk to them when you needed to. And they just really like gave me the tools to just how to research, go through the books the right way, go to museums, like make sure you document like how to cite, like if you want to cite like an exhibit, if you want to cite like a book you find in the gift shop. They were the best. And I'm, as much as I love sports, I still do watch them, but I'm
Hmm.
glad I went back to history. I really am.
Yeah, I'm honestly a big sports fan as well, as you probably see by my background.
Yes.
Like so that's something that, that history and baseball are probably like my two favorite things. But I
Yeah.
have to ask now, who are your favorite sports teams? I have a feeling it's something New York for some reason.
They both made me mad last night. Yankees and Rangers. They both made me
Oh,
mad last
I
night.
knew it. I literally knew it because you're from
They
New Jersey, so it makes sense.
Well, it's where you would think everybody would always think Islanders because my father's family's from Long Island, but he was born and raised in Queens.
Oh,
So
really?
so they went to Madison Square Garden and Yankee Stadium all the time. Like my dad saw Mantle, Maris, he saw them all.
Oh gosh, jealous.
And yeah, and my mom didn't really I mean, my mom started getting into hockey when she and my dad married, but baseball wise, she didn't really get into it until me. Even though my brother, who's 11 years older than me, also played and she never got into it. She didn't
Like
really
baseball is
get into it
like my
until
biggest love ever. I grew up playing baseball my whole
me too.
basically until I was like 12 probably.
Yeah,
Then I quit, but you grew up going to Phillies games. Of course, my family's Phillies fans. I'm not.
right.
You couldn't tell. Because of course I'm from 2 hours outside of Philly, so it makes sense. But my brother plays baseball, so I always grew up out of baseball field, so it makes total sense. But my mom is not really a baseball fan either. She watches it here and there, but she really doesn't
Right.
get into it. But most of her family are just like diehards. Definition of diehard.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of hockey, like I was literally born 9 months before the cup in 94.
Really?
I was born in September of 93. They won June 94.
Oh my gosh, that's
So like
insane.
every time I see 94, like everywhere now, because I'm like, I was 9 months. I don't remember it. Give me one I can remember.
I know. This give
And
me
it's
something I can actually remember for my life rather
yeah,
than me being born before that moment. Like, of course,
yeah,
after all that times.
yeah. I mean, that
Imagine
was like the
being
only
born on that day, though.
yeah,
Imagine being born on that day. I literally applaud for those people being born on that day. This is
right.
iconic.
I mean, I love the way the Yankees are like, I mean, my mom was like never the biggest Giancarlo Stanton fan, but now that he's hit and she's like all over it.
That makes
She's
sense.
like, yeah, she's like,
And
every
I
time he
worked
struck out,
on
I'm like,
the Yankees
done.
minor league team last year, and all the players are in the minors right now. Oh my gosh, they're insane.
Yeah, they
The
are.
future of the Yankees is going to be insane, like over the next
I
couple of
think so
years.
too. Oh yeah.
But like, of course, like with all the research, like how much research did you have to do for this book? Because I know you know tons about history, but how much research did you really have to dive in?
Well, I decided to do this topic. It was right before COVID hit. So after we went to the Revolution Museum in 2019, and I found a lot of stuff on women spies or like women fighting for the rights for like voting and all this other stuff in the colonies. And then once the pandemic hit, it was hard to research. So everything was due through Google, like JSTOR. I did find a couple museums I was able to email and get information from. I mean, the pandemic, it was so hard. And then
Yeah.
finally, once everything opened again, we went to Philadelphia in 2020. We went to the American Revolution Museum there. We went to Virginia like 4 times. Like we love Williamsburg, Virginia. We go as many times as we can. And I just went to so many museums. We went to Long Island because they do have a museum there that had to do with the Culper spy ring. That's what got me mad though, because we went there right before COVID hit. We literally went January 2020, a month and a half before the world shut down. And this woman there, she was trying to tell me I was wrong. And I'm like, no, you are telling me your opinion. You're not telling me facts. There is a
Mm.
difference.
There's a difference
Because
between opinions and our facts. There's two different
right.
sides of
Right. And like my mother and I are sitting there. She's like explaining like the whole like they have a whole big backdrop of like, the Culper spy ring, like the maps and all that. And then there's a couple sitting next to us and she's explaining things. And I'm thinking to myself, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Shut up, you're wrong. And she looks at me, she goes, well, what does our historian think? And my mom's rubbing my back, like, don't do it, don't do it. And I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'll educate her, I'll do it. It drove
Did
me
you
nuts
though?
because oh yeah. I said I've been studying this since I was 13. At the time, I was 26. So I'm like, I know what I'm doing. You're telling me your opinion. You're not telling me the actual facts. Like she had a picture of Benjamin Franklin. I said, what's he doing here? He had nothing to do with this.
But you hate on
Benjamin
the business
Franklin,
anyway.
yeah, but she was trying to make like an excuse for it. I'm like, no, he had nothing to do with the Culper spy ring. He had nothing to do with the espionage. What are you getting at here? And she just did not want to admit that she was wrong about this.
That's what a lot of people are nowadays, is that they when they know everything about history, they're just too cocky to actually admit it when people actually call them.
Exactly. They don't want to admit that they're being wrong. And I'm like, and like even my mother's like, I have a 10-year-old niece and nephew, my brother's twins. And she said, for example, what if like, you didn't study this and all that? And say we took Gabriella and Nicholas to the museum and she's telling them all this. How many lies is she feeding children who want to go into history?
And the kids might actually believe it. It might actually help people.
Exactly. I mean, Kylie, I mean, thank God. Like I said to my niece, because she wants to get into National History Day that I judge every year. I was like, thank God you have me. You have your
Mm.
aunt who wants you to do this.
Yeah, at
I said,
least
I
you have someone
will,
that actually teaches you the facts.
right. Because like her brother doesn't care, but she was like, I want to do it. I said, you want to do it? You're coming to the right person.
You
Go over there.
literally can you'll literally know the right person for this job.
Yeah.
And I'm actually that person.
Yeah. I said, Gabby, you got me. We will research. We will Google. We'll go to museums. I don't care what you want to do. This is why you have me.
You're
We're doing
lucky I
this.
actually got into history for
I
this once in
said,
my
you're lucky
life.
I have a degree and I have 3 degrees and I wrote a book. You have the right person.
Yeah, and I literally have a book you can read. So here you go for free.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It was
that's
so
the
cute the
best
other
thing
day.
is you can literally get anything for free if you actually write it.
Right.
Like,
It was so cute when she looked up my book the other day. She goes, wow, you have good reviews. I'm like, I know, Gabs. I know.
that's the best part because there's
Yeah.
barely any books about this, so of course I'm gonna get good reviews.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't
But
I?
I just like, I mean, I know there are so many amazing museum educators out there who know what they're doing, who have degrees in this, who know what they're talking about. But this museum is more of like a nonprofit, so they take like donations at the door.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is anybody, and like even my mom was like, is anybody telling her the truth? Is she just spitting out nails? Like, who's telling her this stuff?
I know, it's
Who's
insane.
telling her
Like
it's
I literally that's
okay?
a big pet peeve of mine is people telling lies about certain
Right.
things. I'm like, bro, or
Yeah.
if you're ready for me to scream, this is the exact moment.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like we were sitting in those chairs and she's talking about this, and I feel my mom's hand on my back, like, and I could hear her whisper, calm down. I'm not going to calm down.
If you
Benjamin
want me
Franklin
to
had
calm
nothing to do
down,
with
it's
this.
gonna make it 100 times worse.
Yeah. Because I said to her, I love when she turns to me. She just goes, what does our historian think? I'm like, I don't think. I know you're wrong.
Mm.
I literally said to her, you're wrong. I said, I don't know where you think you're going with this. And then, funny enough, 2 months ago, I get an email from their director. They want me to come out to Culper Spy Day in September to sell my book.
Really?
Not even kidding you. I got an email on LinkedIn and I'm like, who is this person? So I said, what the heck? I'll click the email and I'm like, you're kidding me, right? After your historian, I use that word loosely with her, tried to tell me 2.5 years ago I was wrong and my book wouldn't go anywhere, and that I don't know what I'm talking about when I have the degree in it. And now you want me to come and set up a booth and sell my book on Culper Spy
That's
Day.
really
Got it.
insane.
And guess when it is? I cracked up when she told me the date.
Really?
My 31st birthday, September 7th.
Oh my God.
I was like, you think I'm going to drive to Long Island, New York, the last weekend of summer to sell my book when your historian thought I was lying? Got
And
it.
on my birthday.
And on my birthday of all days.
I
I'm like,
know.
I go to
I'm
Williamsburg
like,
every year.
there's 0% chance I'm doing that.
Yeah, I'm like, I go
Unless
to
you give me
Williams.
a lot of money, then I will.
Like, I'm happy if I get to make money from my book, but I'm like, I go to Williamsburg every year on my birthday. That ain't happening. Do you know if you know me, you know Long Island, and it is a pain to drive. I said, that
Mm,
LIE, forget.
I
We've done it
know.
too many times, forget it.
I know.
And I said, it's the last weekend of summer. Everybody's going to the Hamptons. You know what? That I said, hotels are going to be a fortune on a Saturday. But I'm
Like,
like,
it'll be great if I spend less than $1,000 on a hotel.
yeah. I was like, unless you want to pay for my hotel, then I'll come.
Yeah, less money I have to spend.
And
Like,
then I emailed her twice. I said, how many copies do you need me to? Because she said over like 1,000 people go to this. I said, that's $2,000 out of pocket. I said, I don't have a publisher. I did this myself. So I said, I
mm,
have to pay out of pocket for either author copies or regular copies. And I'm like, I emailed her twice. I said, how many copies do you need me to bring? Still haven't heard from them. So I said, you know
really?
what? I'm gonna go to Atlantic City on my birthday. Forget this.
Hey, might as well gamble and drink. Like,
Right.
might as well. If they didn't
Enjoy
respond,
31 the right way.
to celebrate the right way. Like this, it's like a slap in the face after a while.
Yeah. And I was like, you really think I want to come do that after your historian tried to tell me I was wrong when I have the degree?
I know.
Got it.
Like, who
Got
does
it.
that? Like, who
Yeah.
does?
I couldn't believe it. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
I know. But to wrap like this episode up, like what are your kind of current research projects and what can we kind of expect from you in the future?
So I am working with an amazing woman. Her name is Grace, and she does pitch decks, and we are trying to turn She Spies into a docu-series for TV.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
She has connections at A&E Networks, and once the pitch deck is done, we're going to go on a call with them, and hopefully we will get that going by the end of the year. I'm working on a second book about my papa, my mom's father, who I miss very, very much. It's totally different than what I'm doing now. Because everybody keeps saying, do a sequel to She Spies, do a sequel to this. I'm like, no, my second book is so different. And when I told people what it was, they were like, yeah, that is different. Like, I just got the same reaction from everybody. It's different. So my mother's father was the bartender to the mob in
Interesting.
in Newark, New Jersey, and New York City. And I have a couple pictures of him on my phone of him behind the bar, and I'm just like, so I said to my mother when she first told me about it, actually both my papa and then my grandmother had another boyfriend after he died. And I'm like, what is with my grandmother and then the mob? What is with her? So I was like, being unconventionally tied to it. And I'm like, I always see papa signs like everywhere. I was like, you know what? Tell the story of him. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know, he
also,
was,
like this legacy, get his story out there. It might as well.
yeah, he's the best. I mean, I miss him very much. And um he was just the absolute best. And it's hard to know that he's gone. That he didn't get to meet my niece and nephew. But yeah, I just said, you know what? I want to tell his story. I think it would
Mm-hmm.
be a lot of fun to tell his story and just say, you know what, this it's weird. I mean, like my friend Frankie teases me all the time, like when I post about him, like on my Instagram stories, and he was like, is the mob gonna come after me? I said, if you keep taking them off, they will.
I
So it's like,
love
I got
that.
bodyguards, you don't.
Like if you post them and you say something, I'm like, Bro, do you know
Yeah,
this guy?
bro.
Like, do you even met
Yeah.
this before?
Yeah, I mean,
But
the people that he knew, I mean, I always say that, like, I didn't grow up with gangland or like all that, but I'm like, in a way, my bodyguards are here, as my mother
yeah,
used to
like I
call
have
it.
people
The
behind me.
bodyguards are here.
Like, there's some sort of
Yeah,
bodyguards here, like some sort.
yeah. So I'm doing National History Day. It's a competition every year that junior and high school students get to do. And I'm going to Maryland in about a week and a half. It's the 50th anniversary this year.
Oh wow.
So I'm really, yeah, they've been doing it since 1974. So I'm really excited to get down there. I get to meet all these amazing kids and just the projects that they do, the minds that they think of, the fact that they're allowed to start in sixth grade and see the way they work up. I mean, it is amazing what comes to their minds, even at like, say, my niece and nephew's age at like 11, the things
Mm,
they think of and the projects they come up with. And I'm like, I wish I thought of this stuff when I was 11. And that's when I
I
started studying. And
know.
I'm like,
Like kids are
I
just so
mean,
smart nowadays. It's
they
crazy.
are. I mean, I remember, I always say that, like, the things that my niece thinks of, the things that my nephew does. I remember my nephew, when he was 10 months old, he unscrewed his own jumper. And I'm like, you're 10 months. How'd you do that? I can't
I
even do
like
it.
I would never do that to 10 months old. I barely going to walk at one. Like, how am I supposed to
Yeah.
do that at 10 months old?
I mean, and like my niece, like she has like a memory for ages. And I'm like, I forgot we were talking about the other day, but she goes, oh, well, I remember when I was 4. And I'm like, well, way to make your aunt look stupid.
Like, I barely remember for when I was probably 6 rather than 4. Because I
Yeah.
have a
Like
bad
I remember
memory,
so
so I could barely remember anything from like 10 and under.
yeah, I mean, I remember some things, but I'm like, how she just like remembers some of this stuff. I'm like, she's got some mind for a 10-year-old.
I
She really does.
know.
Both of them.
Like every time someone sometimes has to remind me that something happened because I would not remember anything,
Yeah.
which is
It amazes
insane.
me how they do it. It really does. I mean, I can't believe that, like, in 2 weeks, they're gonna be on their way to fifth grade already. Feels like
I
we just had them
know.
and now, yeah,
It's crazy.
it
Time
is.
flies. It
It
really
does.
does.
Especially when you have little ones.
I know, especially with being a twin. I'm a twin myself. So,
Okay.
I'm a junior in high school. So, things I
Yeah.
end my things next week. So, very excited. I'm just ready
Yeah.
to graduate all over now.
Yep.
But, time flies, you
It
just think
does.
when you're very young and now they're growing older, like what school ends, I'm just like, bro, like I just want to
I
say.
know. Yeah.
But I really appreciate you so much, Allie, for coming
Thank
on and joining us
you.
today. I know this was a very kind of quicker episode, but I loved having you talk about some history with us. You're actually probably our first
Absolutely.
guest actually is a historian, so I'm very
Oh,
excited about
great.
that one. But I thank everyone for listening. I hope everyone learned something new. But thank you, Allie, for joining us today. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Kylie. You too.